Hello, welcome back to the craft.o.clock channel. My name is Aditi and I'm here to share some mixed media creations with you all. Today I will be using the new collection Vintage Love by Renetta, and I will be creating two different mixed media cards. On the craft.o.clock inspiration Facebook group, I noticed a few people asking how to use flower clusters and the extras elements that come with collections. And so I thought today would be a good idea to show that in my tutorial of how to use the fussy cut elements, flower clusters in your projects. They can be used across different projects, but it's easy to show it on something like mixed media cards, where we create multiple layers and add these elements to create depth, texture, and of course, focal points. So I am going to be creating two different sizes of cards. One is going to be a rectangle and one is a square. So for the rectangle, I have cut my paper at 8 inches by 9 inches and scored the 8-inch side at 4 inches, and I want to open it this way from the top. And the square card is 6 by 12 inches, scored at 6 inches on the 12-inch side, and I want to open this sideways. So with these two different types of layouts, I will be covering techniques of adding just layers with the papers as well as creating the composition. Now, before we get into that, let's quickly flip through and see the beautiful patterns of the Vintage Love. I will be using the 6-inch paper pad as well as the 8-inch paper pad, and I'm quickly going to show you the designs of the 8-inch. They're basically the same but just smaller versions. For the extras, we have the Vintage Love, just vintage elements. We also have flower elements, and I'll first flip through the vintage elements. Now I'm going to flip through the Vintage Love flower elements. And along with that, in this collection, there are also Vintage Love basic paper set, which is sized like the extras elements and are just basic patterns that can again be used for layers. And I will also be incorporating these in my cards today because it's easy to just get that basic pattern that would make for a good background. First, I will be working on this rectangular piece. So what I've done is from the base papers, trimmed a piece of paper which is 3.5 by 8.5, just half-inch shorter than my base. And this will be my first layer. I am going to be using Victorian Velvet and Gathered Twigs Oxide inks to distress my pieces for the layers. We can add another level of texture and distress effect by just ruffling up and distressing the edges. And to glue this down, I'm going to use double-sided tape because when sometimes you use the liquid glue, it makes the base a little wet and all wrapped up. So I don't like that and I want to use double-sided tape for the base layer. For the next layer, I use this particular pattern paper, but in the 6-inch pack, and I have cut down all of these strips. So I will be layering these, but first I'll distress all of them, and I'll be gluing them down with foam tape and leaving distance in between each of these strips. And what that will do is give me a nice natural wooden log effect, plus create contrast with this background paper. And that completes our second layer. And you can see how it adds just a different level of depth, dimension, texture. And the background pink is just popping at a few places, but I think that's just enough to give this that shabby vintage feel. Now to just add soft touches with color, I have three Lindy's Magicals, Bodacious Blush, Pink Lady's Pink, Kissing Chemical Coral. And this is just a palette that I'm working with. Soft, gentle touches, and what I'm going to do is just add splatter on the background. What this does is it brings back the color from the background, and it just ties everything together, the layers so far, and makes it one whole picture. I'm now going to go in with white splatter as well. While the base of the previous card is drying, let's work on the layers for the square card. So the first layer, I am using a paper from the basic set, and that is cut down to 5/7/8 inch by 5/7/8 inch. And the other two sheets that I want to use are from the 6-inch paper pack. So my second layer is 5/3/8 inch by 5/3/8 inch, and the last layer is 4/7/8 inches by 4/7/8 inches. Now what I am going to do, like I did for the previous one, I will distress the edges with oxide inks, and I will distress the edges of the first base layer with scissors, glue that down, basically adhering that with double-sided tape. I'll adhere the last two layers with a piece of chipboard to bring in dimension and depth. With the base layers in place, I'm going to use the same colors I used for the previous card and add splatter. Now I have fussy cut the elements from the flowers and the vintage sets that I showed earlier, and time to layer and create a composition. So I definitely am using the larger flower chunks as well as smaller chunks and other elements. I'm also going to be using the flower wreath. Now, on this rectangular card, since it's long and quite horizontal, I don't want my composition to be central. I want it to be one sided, moving towards the other side. And that is what I'm keeping in mind. So, if I'm going to make this side heavy, I will reduce the balance on this side and make sure that there is movement in my composition. And that's how I've completed the layering. And you can see so many elements all layered together, some underneath others, some using foam tape, and it adds depth and dimension. We still need to add finishing touches, but I'm going to set this aside and do the same thing for the square card. Now, since this is a square card, I can decide wherever I want my focal. All the sides are same. And most probably when I end up with my focal layering is going to be quite central for this one. I already have a nice base print here, and so that balances out my elements. So I'm going to tend towards adding the layers a little on the left side and then creating the balance throughout. And that is a look at the layering of the square card. Like you saw, in both the cards, I used a little piece of lace to add just another level of texture and dimension. Now, to add the finishing touches, I'm going to go back in with splatter again on top of these layers. Lastly, a touch of clear glitter with glossy accents. And that's it. That completes both our cards. So here is just a closer look at those beautiful layers, dazzling, that amazing depth and dimension. And in this one, that wood grain background just really makes it all completely pop. And you can notice not the complete background is visible, not all the layers are completely visible, but that's what mixed media is all about: layers, depth, dimension, and texture. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today and it has been inspiring for you all. Until the next time, take care. Bye bye. Happy holidays and have a fantastic 2023.